Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 169 of Coach Quip. I'm Coach Robin.
I'm Coach Chris.
And today, perfect timing, we're talking about reflecting on your year. It is usually when people do their annual wraps, and we want you all to do a self-evaluation on your year. And it seems maybe a little tedious or maybe a little scary, but we promise you're going to reveal some things that are going to make 2025 that much better.
I love doing these things. Do you do any of these for yourself?
I do it for the business.
Yeah.
I do it, I would say, loosely as a coach, just from feedback that I get from my own athletes. But like personally, probably not.
Yeah. I just started a couple of years ago, and I really, really love doing this every year. Not just for myself as an athlete, but also as a person.
Are those two separate?
Two. I do three separate. I do one with my wife. I do one by
smart.
myself as an athlete, and one as a personal growth and development.
Sorry, Brian. Guess what? We know what we're doing today.
Yeah, no, but it's such a cool way to look at the last year, and one, I think, celebrate your accomplishments and like actually celebrate some of the good things, because by the time we hit December,
you forget.
A lot of us are just like, here's all the bad things that happened this year. So it's a great way to look at and celebrate the accomplishments, achievements, like positive points of the year, because for so many of us, we can really dwell on the negative. And so whether it's personally or looking at your racing, I think we're likely to remember the goal that we didn't hit, but maybe not all of the good things that we did along the way. So it forces us to take an honest evaluation of the snapshot of the year. And I think it's also really helpful for planning next year's goals.
I think it is hard end of year. You're totally right, especially because it's dark and we're probably stressed because we're coming off of holidays and maybe don't feel very good about ourselves. So being able to kind of look back and be appreciative and figure out what you did well and maybe what you didn't is probably helpful to know where you want to go from here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can shy away from this because it does require maybe acknowledging some of the things that didn't go so well, but there's always a silver lining to that and something that we can, a nugget that we can pull out to help us for the future.
Yeah, Coach Bennett you look just like Coach Bennett right now. So maybe we should have you say this, which is to identify your weaknesses and seek out to destroy them. And you should be excited about destroying them, right? It shouldn't be something that doesn't kind of light a spark, but it is a really great way to look at when you reveal them, you have an opportunity to do something with it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But this is about the good and the bad.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the ways that athletes can do their own self-evaluation. So as coaches, we prompt our athletes to do an evaluation for us. But if you are not a coached athlete or you want to do a little extra deep diving, we've got some topics for you. So we're going to start off with goals. So when you're looking at your last year and thinking about your goals, we want to think about, one, what were they? Like, what were your goals and did you achieve them? So that would be the first question that I would think about.
Yeah, that's a big one. And they don't have to be all huge either, right? It doesn't need to be a massive one. It's just, what was it and did it actually get achieved? And if it didn't, there's a reason why, right?
Yeah, and so this is, going back to the life-changing magic of writing down your goals. You can flip back in your training journal, see what did I write down as my goals, and then pull that forward so that you can do this evaluation. So another area that you want to think about is, not just did I meet that goal, but do I still care about this goal?
Yeah. Is it still exciting? Sometimes, especially, we've seen this a lot in the last, 4 to 5 years of just constant turmoil. People are operating at a much higher level of kind of crisis. And so what they think that they want to chase sometimes can start to feel heavy and not be fun, and they have to let it go.
Yeah.
And there is nothing wrong with that. So if it was a goal and if you reached it or didn't reach it, okay. But a real question is this still something that I want to invest my time in? And if it's not, that's cool. This is the time to identify that so that we don't just keep putting it on the list for the next year.
Yeah, maybe the goalposts have moved, right? So I have athletes who were really serious about chasing Boston goals, and then they changed the times, and now that what was 1 minute is now 6 minutes out of reach, and that doesn't seem like a goal worth chasing for them right now. So yeah, we have to think, do you still want to focus on that goal? And then what factors played a role in whether you hit that goal or not? So taking a look at the snapshot of your year, Did you have busy periods during your training? Did you have more time because you were unemployed? Did you have a group that you were training with that really helped propel you to success? So by looking at those factors, you can kind of pull out the things that helped your training and hurt your training overall.
I would maybe also look at one of those factors, maybe being strength training. This is a big time of year where people recognize I should have done either any or more based on how they ended up on their season or how they felt or if they were still injured or navigating an injury. So be real with yourself on that as well. It's something I have to do too, you know, just to make myself do the thing that I don't necessarily want to do, even though I know it's going to help me feel better and do the things that I really want to kind of chase. All right, next up, we got 3 big chunks. This is the second, training. The big training umbrella, right? Were you consistent? We don't ask for perfect consistency by any means, but just look at what that trend was. Were you consistent? What kind of plan did you use and did it work? This is where, you know, it always is amazing to me how many people write their own plans, which is great. Like more, especially if you know what you're doing, more power to you, but actually following it is a completely different story. So take an honest assessment. Did you use like an online training plan that you felt good about, and how well did you do with that? Did you get a plan from someone? Did you go green in Training Peaks? You know, if so, during what phases? Look at those. In addition, what were your strengths? You know, it can be things like mental toughness, nailing nutrition. I love these process goals. Like when my athletes are like, man, I really wanted to make sure to improve my nutrition game, and I did. That is something they can take with them for years, along with things like mental toughness. Really dig into what those strengths are.
Yeah, I think the next thing you want to look at is where can you improve, right? So you've seen those strengths. You also want to assess the flip side of that. So this is a great time to think about the things you want to integrate into your base building phase. So if you really struggled with maintaining your form later on in runs, time to hit the gym and get the strength in and get that core work in so that you can hold that form longer in the future. We also want to be thinking about what types of training you like the most. So thinking about what is the most fun for you right now. This is a big one, especially as we're planning races, and you might be in that little bit of burnout area right now where maybe things are not looking as alluring as they did in the past, or maybe you are in that spot where you're getting itchy to race again and things are really exciting to you. So what is going to be the most fun for you moving forward? What was the most fun for you in the past year?
We had an interesting bit of feedback last week. We have the games. Of course, we're recording a little bit before this is going to go to you all. So we have the games coming up this weekend, and we're just checking in with some of the athletes and asking them, you know, like, how are you doing? You know, what can I help with? So leading up to this effectively like strength and conditioning event, we have a Wednesday night class that's been bumping. Shout out to Coach Dearmid, who's been just completely leading the charge, and it's been super fun, and it's an awesome group. A lot of times I can't make that class, or it's full, and so obviously I'm not going to take a space from an athlete. So then I will do a random pop-up on usually Friday. You've attended some, where I just pop into that chat, to the games chat, and be like, hey, who wants to play at 1 p.m. on Friday, or whatever it is. And I'm always surprised that I get anywhere from like 6 to 11 people. I don't coach it, I do it with them. And I had 2 different athletes tell me that the most fun thing that they like the most this fall is those pop-up workouts. And so that's important. If you are identifying something it's not that it's not structured, because it is a really hard workout. We're just repeating what the main group workout was from Wednesday. But it's this idea of doing something different, i.e. the strength conditioning that these athletes don't normally do any other time of year at a unique time, in just kind of a fun, spontaneous space. And the excitement that they're getting from this thing is so surprising to me, because for me it's just convenient for me, right? But that it's really resonating with them, and I think that's important. If they are identifying that as having a ton of fun, we need to do more of that than in the future.
They say that's the key to a happy life, is new and novel experiences. And you know, those classes are essentially what Coach D would be doing that night, just minus his commentary, minus his
well, and we're cussing at him a lot too.
That's
we're
fun.
Redoing it.
there's Misery Loves Company, and that grouping up piece that we consistently have talked about so much over the last several episodes is really important here, because it is that power of the group which keeps you more accountable, which keeps you more excited about your goals. So even just, running at a different time of day or riding a different course on Zwift. Like these are the small novel things that might make your future better. But when you're thinking about the past, you want to identify those spots that really sort of helped you find the joy in your training again.
Yeah, 100%, because that's what's going to keep you doing it until you're 80.
Yep.
Full stop. That's our goal. We want you doing these things when you're 80, 90 years old, and that is how you do it.
Yeah. And then the last piece of the training aspect that you want to check in on is, what did you dread or want to avoid? And so if you had some workouts or style of workout that consistently throughout the year either was red on Training Peaks or you just found that your heart really wasn't into it, this is a great place to evaluate why. So, I have mentioned on the podcast before that I was struggling with speed work, and it was that I didn't feel like I was giving enough time to my base. And so I didn't see the value in adding that speed work. But that is actually an excuse. It was just that I didn't want to push myself that hard by myself most of the times that it was speed work day.
I had, when we opened Edge, before we were like physically open and we were in like the heavy planning stage, I was probably still working full time too. I've told this story, I think, before, but I decided I was going to do another half Ironman. I was like, this is great. Like, I'll get into the swing of things. I can't even tell you how much I hated it. And I had done halves and fulls. Like I knew what to expect, but my life load that year was so heavy. I hated everything. I hated every 1 hour easy ride. Going to the pool, oh my gosh, I just dreaded all of it. And it took my coach being like, yo, this is not the time to do this. And as soon as I cut it, I felt so much better. But that was such a great indication of like, oh no, don't do that next year too, because things are just going to get harder. And that's really important. If you start to like feel like things are there might be a little bit of heaviness when you're peaking. Yeah. That's normal. Yeah. But if it is getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, you need to pivot, simplify, find something different.
Yeah, and in my case, so speed work is something that I have to do. I just have to find the way that I'm motivated to do it and that it is fun to do.
Do you want me to go buy you on a bike?
And maybe in the summer. Maybe we'll summer that. But changing up the way that I approached it has helped a lot. So finding either groups or finding treadmill workouts that are speed workouts through an app that I use that have been a good way to get me back into it, not hating it as much as I hated it before.
I love that. That's good.
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned life as a
I know.
Factor,
I was going to give that example during this one, but
no, it's okay. So let's go. Our third bucket here. We have goals. We have training. Number 3 is life.
So really, I mean, like, this is all of us have a heavy life load right now. Like it just is. It's just what happens after the last 4 to 5 years. So look yourself in the mirror and think about, did you have any major life changes or events that happened this year? Is there something that fundamentally changed? And call that out and plug that into where training got better or worse, or where things felt easier or harder, because that is a very, very big piece of navigating being an adult athlete, is figuring out, how to piece things together when there are changes. Spoiler alert, the only constant is change. So it's going to keep happening. And if we can identify what happens when things pivot, we will know how to pivot that much better.
Yeah. So around pivoting, you also want to think about balance. How balanced did you feel throughout your training cycle this year? And I think this is a big one, because we will always have these different life stressors, right? And while there are seasons of life, there are also times that are just going to be completely different, right? Like if you're moving a house and don't intend to move it for another 10 years, that's going to be a stress that impacts you this year, but maybe not in the future. It might improve your training in the future, in fact. So how balanced did you feel as you were navigating all of the things that you just thought about with your training load in the past year?
And also, how did you navigate that balance? I also very much believe that in order for us to achieve, if you've got like a bigger goal, you have to have periods of very purposeful imbalance too. Right. So before we did like our first really long endurance stuff, I remember our coach sitting us down and saying, listen, your race is in November. So October, November, you have no life. Like, you just need to know that now. You are literally going to wake up, train, work, train, shower, sleep. It's going to be hard to figure out how to eat, right? And it was very long stuff. So we knew that was going to happen. but we have to know that it's going to happen and not be surprised by it, right? So if you knew that it was going to become imbalanced, how did you navigate that before and after?
Yeah.
Because that is real. You're going to have things that shift, usually social or, whatever those things are, to be able to balance that imbalance, because it's very much going to happen. That's how we achieve great things.
Yeah, this one is so important if you intend on continuing in your preferred sport. So if you are an Ironman athlete or if you're a marathoner, right? Looking and taking that honest evaluation of, okay, I really gave up on a lot of opportunities to be social in the 2 months before my marathon, but I didn't do a good job of communicating that with other people.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe next year, in the next season, how could I improve here is by maybe telling people what my goals are and telling them what my parameters are for social engagements so that it doesn't strain my relationships in the same way. So we can use all of this again to really help us plan in the future, and that's the reason we like to do these assessments.
Think too, right, holistically about the whole year. Are there any periods that you want to shift or reconsider in future years? I talk a lot about my tax attorneys. I know their deadlines like the back of my hand, and we know there are times that we do not want to peak. We can be building, but we don't want to be freaking peaking, or God forbid, tapering.
Right.
Because there's no way their body is going to be recovering with 4 hours of sleep, right? We just avoid those at all costs. So if you don't know, maybe you're in a new job, right? We just talked about when your athletes have got a new job. Ask when those busy periods are so that you can layer it into your upcoming year and know when you might want to be avoiding either serious training or serious taping or racing.
Yeah. And then the final area around life stuff to think about is really, and I guess this is a little bit about training as well, but are there any races or distances that you want to shift or reconsider in the future based on how your life is set up?
Yeah, and this is real talk here. This is something that we've seen, and I know Coach Chris and I have talked about it quite a bit. A lot of the coaches have Ironman distance.
Yep.
This is a great example, right? Pre-COVID, I would argue that, the sport in general is not growing a ton, triathlon, long distance triathlon, but it was definitely maintaining. Like, we had a lot of people still racing fulls. It was very much this thing that people wanted to do. Well, shit went sideways. I don't know if that gets me to E or not, but you're getting one of those. I don't think it does. So it did. We got way crazy, right, over the last 4 to 5 years. We all kind of lost our way. We definitely have a completely new way of life. And what we saw was that people very much were 140.6 Ironman averse. It was too much. They no longer needed to race for 12 to 17 hours to prove themselves.
Yeah.
And honestly, the half Ironman really took that feel. That was really what people could truly handle, and I would argue that training almost put people over the edge. And it is more than half of it for sure, but it's a lot. And we are just now in 2025 starting to hear about people talking about doing fulls again in any sort of capacity. And I think you need to be really, really, really honest with yourself. If you raced something longer, I don't care if that longer was 10K, half marathon, 50K, Ironman, whatever it was, if it burned you the heck out and you felt like there is just no way, and you have this weird obligation that you should try to do it again, don't do it again. The race will always be there.
Yeah.
Like, cut it back, keep it simpler, do something that just freaking excites you. And I promise you, if you start to get that spark about that longer distance again, it's going to be at a time when you are able to handle it life-wise.
Right. Yep. All right, so we can use these answers to really help us prepare for the next year and next season in terms of creating your goals and what that year might look like. If you are serious about doing a self-evaluation, I suggest that you go back to the top of this episode and jot down the questions. I will also put these questions.
I like that.
I will put these questions in the show notes so that you can copy and paste them and take some time. Just sit down with your journal and take some time to reflect on how this year went for you. And I guarantee you it'll help you make a really solid 2025 plan. If you are interested in thinking more about goals for next year, we have several episodes about goals that I will also link in the show notes. And
I am going to bet that we have a future episode talking about the new year and how you can plan that out.
That part too. All right.
Happy New Year.
Thanks for listening to Coach Quip. Original music performed by Mend.
Follow us online on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Edge Athlete Lounge. Our podcast lives in the blog section of our website. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and you can check out the show notes for additional ways to contact us. Ready, set, onward we go.